Move on to the second one. That City Council determines the organization of the city. Councilwoman Myers.
In some cities,
Microphone, please.
you've never said you wanted to hear me before.
But you speak so softly now.
Only when you agree with them.
Okay. There's some cities with a council, mayor form of government where the city council determines the organization of the city. And I think that's important here because, quite frankly, I don't think that, at least I don't, I have to speak for myself. I never know how this city is organized, and I don't know who a department head is, who a division is, and I think that a lot of the problems we have would go away if the city council determined the organization of the city, defined what department heads are, and so also I wanted to call your attention to the duties of the mayor. There's one particular out of the 15 that I wanted to call your attention to.
Is it the making recommendations one? Is that the
It
present
says to keep
recommendation?
the city council informed as to its...
Fully advised as to the financial
Where is
condition? Is it
Number 13.
to keep the city council fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the city? Is that it?
No, that's not it.
Is it the make recommendations one? The
No.
Is it number 15? To determine the organization of the city government?
Well,
Our
obviously,
duties
that would change under my proposal.
Is it 12?
No.
Make available public the finances and administrative activities of the city?
Oh, number 3.
Nope.
that's what I said, recommendations, right?
Now, what I want you to look at here, 3, to present recommendations to the city council on the requirements of its municipal government. Whose municipal government? City council. Its is possessive, and it clearly says who the municipal government belongs to, the governing body. I don't feel that we are kept informed adequately to meet the obligations under number 3 as the governing body. And so I think there's a lot of confusion as to who does what in this city, and the structure of the city can change in the blink of an eye. I don't think that that's good in terms of our ability to budget and for transparency. So I would like for that to be considered. And I would also like the city council executive if he would look at the city of St. Petersburg. I think reserves to the city council the ability to organize the city, the organizational structure of the city. I believe St. Petersburg is one of the cities that has that in their charter.
I don't think that St. Pete does. I know Hialeah does, but I'm
Maybe
pretty
it's
sure St. Pete is not.
Hialeah. I've read so many charters, I'm getting them all
Right.
confused. But look at Hialeah.
Yep.
That was one that we supposedly modeled after.
Councilwoman Canowin.
May I ask Councilmember Myers a question?
Yes, ma'am.
In that structure, does it also structure the mayor's immediate staff, like a chief of staff, or just regular departments?
It would just be primarily, department heads.
Okay.
what departments exist, what a department head would do, the definition, but primarily what we're concerned about are departments.
Right. And for the mayor to create a department or break down a department, may I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Then the mayor would have to come to the council for that
Right.
approval.
Right.
Okay. All right,
The
thank you.
mayor could propose what the organizational structure is, but it would require council approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Wu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. On this one, I probably am going to argue the other position, regardless of whether it's under a strong mayor or a council manager. If you have a council manager, the manager forms his staff. The council approves the city manager and the city clerk and attorney, but basically then the city manager runs or sets up the city as he or she wishes. Under the form of government, I don't see how you can have a strong mayor and not allow the mayor to set up the government the way he would like to set the government up. I'm not saying I'm happy with that, but I think to me it works against the concept of having a strong mayor to then say the mayor then cannot form it the way he wants. Now, we can get into approving department heads and whether that's happened or not, but then that's another ball game. But what I'm addressing here is it's not that I don't feel what you're saying, but I think under what we have, it's diametrically different than what's there. Thank you.
Councilwoman Myers.
Yeah, what I would urge you to think about and look at is that other mayor-council form of governments have this, where the council determines the organization of the city. But let me just point out there's a difference between a manager, a city manager, and a mayor. With the city manager, we can fire the city manager. The city manager is accountable to the city council, but the mayor isn't. And so the only way we can have input into how the city is organized is through under mayor-council form of government, is to have the city council determine the organizational structure. I would also request that maybe we pull some language from the model city charter regarding that issue too.
Okay. Councilman Tahar. Oh, sorry. Councilman Tahar.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
just
Go
have
ahead.
one more
Sorry,
question.
Councilman Kenwin.
Yeah, he want me to go ahead?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a question maybe, Mr. President. When we do the budget, and in the budget process, do we not approve all of the classifications and who's in what position as a part of that process?
I don't know. In the budget document, we don't have all the positions in there, but the classification structure is. I know all that's in there, but, and so.
All right.
Councilman Tahar?
Yes. On this issue, I sort of tend to agree with Councilman Wu, and I do think that Ms. Myers mentioned it, how if the city manager is not doing a good job, then he can be fired, and I honestly think that the mayor is under the same pressure, because if he's not doing a good job, then he's not going to get reelected. And so I don't mind letting essentially what I consider the CEO of a company, which I like to see a government run as more of a company. I think the person in charge should be able to pick their staff and see it and set it up as appropriately as they should. And you know what? If it's not working, then they're not going to be around very long. So, I like that we have basically a referendum on how the job's doing every 4 years. And I don't think that we need to try and pigeonhole someone into a certain way of doing things, because the best way. And someone may have a better idea and say, hey, I can do a lot more efficiently. I don't need all these departments. I can have 2 departments. And if we are very stringent about it, then I think we're going to be tying our hands as someone who can be very creative and possibly more efficient and do stuff with less departments. So I just don't want to sit there and say every single mayor is going to be the same. I think they're all going to be different, and some may spend a lot more money than others, but the voters will see that, and they'll decide that's something they don't want. So I don't want to get too much into the day-to-day operation of the city, because I do think that falls underneath the mayor's purview. So.
Okay. Before I get to you, Councilman Wu, I just want to make a comment. I won't spend a lot of time on this. Council knows that I brought this to you before. I agree the CEO aspect is a compelling one. However, I don't think the shareholders vote to elect the CEO. I think it's the board of directors typically that do that. I would be concerned if they just put it out to a vote of the shareholders to elect the CEO. I'm not saying that I don't trust the voters in this. I just think that as the governing body, we should play more of a role in how this government is organized. And I'm amazed at how little information is shared with us as far as the organization of the government. Who's working where. People show up, I'm like, who is that person? It's like, oh, that's the new person that replaced Zach, who works for the mayor. If we get another assistant city administrator, I fully expect that somebody will just show up and be like, oh, what's he doing here? Or she. So I really think, for balance sake, that this makes a lot of sense. I actually think it encourages cooperation between the mayor and the council, because if the mayor wants a new department, he's got to come bring it to, if this passes, it'd be the 7 of you in the future, or if someone runs against one of you, maybe somebody else, it won't be me. But I think it encourages cooperation. It encourages more analysis of, do we need a department? Look at the public records function. It's bounced all over the place in City Hall. That's a perfect example. I know Mr. Cooper, when he in Parks and Rec, was handling the libraries before we got rid of the libraries. He had no experience running a library, but it was given to him. And then they changed around who was maintaining the parks. One day it was Public Works, then it was Parks and Rec. We really don't have a good handle on that, and I think a lot of things are kind of falling through the cracks. I think as far as the organization, like our police, we're down by like 20 police officers right now, and that makes me nervous. Our fire department can't even run their rescue trucks because we don't have enough personnel there. Maybe we don't need an economic development person. Maybe we need to put more firemen and police officers out there. These are things I think the council should be talking about, but we really don't, because we give that to the mayor. Councilman Wu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I want to preface my remarks by saying this is not directed towards anybody. What I'm saying here is what I've said all along. I mean, if you go back and get tapes of before the new charter was voted on, what I'm saying now is no different than back then. The difference with my esteemed colleague here about the mayor and the voting with the people is, under the council manager form, if you're not happy with what the manager is doing, the majority of the council can relieve that manager that evening. With the mayor, you're talking about a change every 4 years. So if there's something you're not happy with, I mean, there's nothing you can do for 4 years, and that's an awful long time. So the difference in my mind is can you take corrective action or not?
Councilman Wingate.
Okay, if we did get the opportunity to organize the government, will we as a city council try to sit down and organize it, or will we go outside and get some agency to come in, or some company to come in and study what we should have and then turn it over to the mayor?
Councilman Myers.
Well, I didn't want to speak to that particular question, but I would certainly think if we have a mayor-council form of government that we would sit down with the mayor and work it out, so anyway. But I wanted to speak to something else. First, I think every person on council should read the Model City Charter, the 8th edition. by the, anyway, because the model city charter frowns upon the type of government we have. It does not recommend, basically in cities this size, that we a bifurcation of governmental powers, because it tends to create dysfunctionality, especially without the proper controls and balances of power. And I don't like to think of the government as being run like a corporation. I don't think that's the proper way to view government, and in fact, our forefathers did not view it that way. Our U.S. Constitution clearly states what the purpose of government is in one sentence. One sentence. All men are created equal and are guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's second sentence. And for this purpose, government exists. For this purpose, government exists to secure the rights. These three rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. This is why governments are established. It's in your Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or the Declaration of Independence. It's right there. It tells you in one sentence what the purpose of government is. The purpose of government is to ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not to be run like a corporation. So I think that the first thing is that we need transparency in government. We need a balance of power in order to have that transparency. And so I was a big supporter of the charter because I've always lived in big cities, where cities that are really big in population really need one person. However, those cities also had very strong city councils to balance the power. In a small city like this, I'm sorry to find out, I don't think it works very well. You don't have the diversity of power, competing power bases so much in a small city like this as you do in large cities. And so I supported the charter because I have had such good experiences living in cities with strong mayor leadership. But they were much bigger cities than what we have. And so I feel that I was wrong. And I feel like if we don't change the form, allow the people to vote, change the government back to a manager council, that we need to put in.
That's not the item we're on.
I know, stronger controls, to balance. And I think determining the organization, determining who, approving the department heads, and approving the city administrator should be the absolute essentials to bringing back some control over how the government is operated.
Okay. Any other comments on this item before I go to the public? Anyone in the public want to speak on the organization of the government? Okay.
My name is Bill Kaplinger, 641 Canal Drive, and I think that it's clear by anybody who pays attention to what has happened since the charter came in that we have had a parade of disaster happening in our city government that it boggles the mind. To go towards organization, we need to have organization, and I think a key component that is needed, aside from a whole lot of other things, is that the city council or somebody needs to institute minimal qualifications for people in key positions. I've been here for 40 years. I got to know Ed Hinkle very well. I got to know Tom Bonfield. I got to know county people. And when you get to know them, you realize how broadly educated they are. The courses that they've taken, the degrees that they have taken, help prepare them for the very complicated job of running a local government. When you hire a mayor, elect a mayor, you don't necessarily have any of that. And I think at a minimum, there should somehow be instituted professional qualifications so that a person, whether it's you call them an administrator or anything else, that person needs to have training and experience in running local governments. That's been the root of a lot of our problems, is that we have people who have no clue of what they're doing. And the problem is that people who are interested in government, who train for government, who understand the nobility of working in local government, their hearts are torn out because they see this incompetence all around them, and it's affected the morale of this city government negatively for far too long. You got to do something. The city council's got to do something, and among the things that has to be done, in my opinion, is that we've got to get a handle. Let the mayor pick a person if it stays that way. But that mayor should be provided, that position should have requirements and experience, and you don't pull people who are not qualified to do important jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wu?
I'll just make a last statement on organization. There was a list of cities that were given us, and I think it was basically in another context, shrinking the council. But what was given us were counties that were our size. Well, Sarasota, Coral Gables, Margate, Sanford, Palm Beach Gardens, Doral, and Port Orange. Everyone has a council, commission, council, form of government. Every one of them. So, it works very well for a large city. Tampa, Orlando, Miami. And I'm not advocating throwing out what the Charter Review Committee did. They brought us a ton of excellent stuff, and probably 95% of it I can live with. 4-year terms, staggered terms. There were just a whole slew of things that were wonderful improvements. And the only thing that concerns me is that one concept of a strong government, mayor. Now, having said that, does that mean that you replace the mayor? No, the mayor stays, and the mayor can run for whatever it is. This has nothing to do with that. All I'm doing is talking about the powers that one office has, and we're supposed to have checks and balances. But I'm not quite sure that's what we do have in reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wu.